So all the tokens will go onto fetch chain. So they will become a fetch token. But fetch token will be renamed as ASI token. So for fetch holders, it's a name change and network upgrade. For Ocean and Singularity tokens, it's a conversion whereby their tokens will be converted into ASI token.
This content is brought to you by Uphold, which is one of the top crypto platforms out there, which allows you to easily buy, sell, trade Bitcoin and the top altcoins in the market. Uphold lists 260 plus cryptocurrencies. They also allow you to trade precious metals such as gold, silver, palladium, and platinum. I've been a user of Uphold since 2018, so I can vouch for this platform. They have full transparency reports and they don't commingle or lend out your funds. They also have a great product called Vault, which is an assisted self-custody product. Vault allows you to maintain custody of your funds, and the keys are split. So Uphold holds one and you hold two. And if there's any issues, if you lose one of your keys, Uphold will help restore these keys and you can maintain access to your funds. It's 24/7 instant trading. It's trustless. So this is a great feature that can give you peace of mind where you don't have to worry about if you lose your private keys and much more. So if you'd like to learn more about Uphold, please visit the link in the description. Welcome to the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is Humayun Sheikh, who's the CEO and founder of fetch.ai and the chairman of the Artificial Superintelligence Alliance. Humayun, great to have you on.
I appreciate your invite. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Humayun, I am so excited to speak with you. And I'm not saying that because I interview people, but I'm a big fan of fetch.ai. I'm very fascinated by this merging of these three AI-driven tokens. And we're going to talk about all of that. But before we get there, tell us about yourself, where you're from, and what's your professional background.
I'm from Pakistan. I've been in the UK 25 years now. So I came as a student and then I stayed here. Background, just to give you some professional background a little bit. I trained as a computer scientist, joined here in the UK, joined the gaming industry quite early on, and then from there I started. I met Demis Hassabis, who is the founder of DeepMind. So based on that, we kind of got together, and I got into discussing artificial intelligence and AGI concepts and working on some of those core concepts at that point. And gaming was really a great place to try these things out, as you probably already know. So we started trying those out. Then I became part of Google DeepMind early on. I was the first investor in DeepMind. I was also looking after the commercialization of AI in DeepMind. So that's how I got really into AI. And then once Google bought DeepMind and I exited from DeepMind, I started kind of putting together my thoughts on what was right, what happened good, what happened bad in DeepMind. And one of the things which was quite interesting, which I felt I needed to work on, was the commercialization and actually breaking AI into much more absorbable and granular kind of components so people can actually interact with it and use it. That's how I kind of came to Fetch and the agent-based framework. So that's kind of the story behind it a little bit.
And I'm curious, so you have a plethora of experience with AI, and that's a big part of your experience. But where did you encounter blockchain and crypto? And then, obviously now there's a convergence of those two technologies. But what was your first encounter of Bitcoin? Where did you hear about it? And what was your aha moment?
Yeah, so I've known I must admit, I mean, I didn't get into Bitcoin up front, but I did get into Ethereum quite early on. And so I'm always interested in new technology. So, I was always looking for new technology. AI was one, blockchain and crypto was really kind of maturing and growing. And if you think about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So I was watching the space quite considerably. I'm not overly financial and I'm not into kind of financial engineering as such, but it was quite interesting what Bitcoin was doing. But it became really exciting when Ethereum came about, and we looked at how you could actually execute code and record it and create, actual functioning computing systems on blockchain. So that's when I really got interested. So I got interested quite a lot in Ethereum and then looking at what you could use it for. And on the other side, although I was interested in it, my main focus was still looking at commercialization of AI. And uh, when I was thinking about how can you actually make AI into smaller chunks which people can interact with, and how can you actually use machine learning models? I mean, machine learning models have been around, tens of years. So I was thinking, okay, at the moment, somebody has to build it, somebody has to deploy it, and it all goes back into somebody who has the data, who can use it. And generally, it's these big corporations who can use it. Again, an example is Google and Microsoft and the likes. And when we exited to Google, it became quite clear that training these models is quite expensive. And that really was one of the core things that we needed to be aware of, that without compute, you can't really do anything. And the compute is what is expensive. And if you think about what Google has, it's a cloud infrastructure, compute infrastructure. So how can you then bring it to a place where normal people can interact with it or build solutions, and smaller companies can build solutions? And
Mm.
it kind of really fitted quite well with having a blockchain, which could actually record your participation. It could actually orchestrate the agent-based system, because, and we talk about why agent-based systems. I felt to really get AI to the masses, we need to have agent-based system. And to manage an agent-based system, which is that expansionary and that all-encompassing, you need to have a ledger technology which actually keeps a record of everything. Now, you could do that in a centralized way. You can give it to a big centralized company, or you could actually make it a bit more decentralized where, the communities can manage it and you can still build solutions and you can still deploy them. So that's when I got quite excited about bringing the two together. And this is now 8 7 8 years ago. And that's when we started looking at it.
Wow. That's quite a journey because it was a while ago. And especially in these industries, the technology moves so fast on both sides. Um, so tell us about Fetch and what's its mission, capabilities, and what folks can do with it.
Yeah, so just kind of tying into what I was saying before, it was quite clear that agent-based systems are going to become, to me, it was quite clear that agent-based systems will become the norm for commercializing any or application building in AI space. But what was missing, so Fetch came about around 5 years ago, 6 years, probably if you think about the inception as well. So 6 years ago, we didn't have this LLM craze, although LLM technology, the transformer technology was there. We also used that in DeepMind. We used to train, game agents to play the game just based on reading instruction set. So we were doing that already, but not to that scale where, the LLMs became all encompassing. And what OpenAI did was quite amazing in terms of how they opened up this whole commercialization. But I did have this thinking that yes, we're going to have one day these models which will fully understand what you're saying to them. Now, I don't want to go into the sentient or not sentient or how much they actually understand or not understand. But let's just assume that they understand you well enough to very convincingly give you arguments and make their point, and they understand what your instruction set is or what your objective could look like. But what also was clear was, okay, what next, right? So what are you going to do with it, right? You understand the language, you can talk, and you can talk the talk, but can you do the walk? And that was the kind of the moment when you think, right, so somebody will understand the language, but how can you kind of create a chain of thought where you can actually start putting actions together? And what that also opened up as an understanding was that the search and discovery will change, because at the moment we're just searching for information. And when we can come to search for um, more actionable items. So, for example, if you are going to come and book for a ticket on an airplane or a flight, or you want to book a hotel, these are action, or you want to order a cab, that's action. It also became very clear that Google wasn't really doing the job right. Hence, you needed all these aggregators to come in, because these aggregators were putting all this information together and actually enabling you to create these actionable searches, right? So if you want to book a hotel, you go to booking.com. If you want to book a flight, you go to booking.com. There were incumbents like Amadeus, which was aggregating all of these things. How do you then think the paradigm shift will come when the language understanding is really good? But how do you integrate this with the legacy systems
Mhm.
so you can actually understand your query and actually do the search rather than just dumping 30,000 websites in front of you? So that was the aha moment, really, when we thought, okay, this, I could see with LLMs, we're going to change the way we search, and ultimately we're going to change the way the actionable search also happens. And, when we started Fetch, that was the concept behind it. That was the thinking behind it.
Mhm.
Of course, I mean, it takes time for things to kind of come to fruition. And, when OpenAI released it, well, kind of that was my moment of saying, okay, I told you so. Look, this is coming. And and that kind of, so we were thinking slightly ahead of that, because we also felt that LLM is a big boys game. You need a lot of capital, because we had already seen that in the DeepMind days. Training models is not cheap. So what also became quite clear is that if we're going to, as a smallish entity, going to make a difference, we need to sit above it, and LLMs will become very commoditized because it'll be a game of three or four people, which you're now already seeing. You can see, inflection, and things are changing. What's been happening with OpenAI? It's, unless you get the Microsofts or the Googles of the world funding it, financing it, NVIDIAs of the world, you can't really train a foundational LLM to the right extent. Of course, techniques are going to improve. You're not going to need that much compute. You're going to not need that much data. But at this point in time, they're going to be commoditized. Some big corporation will do it, offer it as a package alongside their other cloud compute, for example. So I've been talking quite a bit, so if you have anything to kind of ask or add, please do.
No, no,
Yeah.
that's great insight. I love that because it gives a lot of perspective and on the problems that you're trying to solve and the dynamics of being in the market with the big players like you mentioned. Um, Tell us about the merge of Fetch, Ocean Protocol, and SNet to form the Artificial Superintelligence Alliance. How did this come about, and what's the goal of merging?
Yeah, so obviously we've spent, I mean, as I said, Fetch is 4 or 5 years old. We've been working quite aggressively on the agent framework. We did some research. I mean, when you're the kind of the first few, there's a lot to explore, and that's
Mm,
what we were doing. And what was quite clear was that there's a lot of components if you're going to take this technology, if you're going to commercialize the technology. My focus has always been how do we commercialize AI? How do we
Mm.
take it right to the consumer? And it became also very clear was that you need compute. Because yes, although foundational models are sitting there, you still need compute because you're going to build new models. So I'll give you an example. I want to go from point A to point B, right? That's my objective. I want to go from London to Paris, right? Now, it's a statement, but it has many components, right? What's my address? Is it what's the weather like? How am I going to travel from point A to point B? Am I going to take a cab, a train? Am I going to need an umbrella? Am I going to wear warm clothes? Not warm clothes. What's the weather going to do? Where am I going to stay? All these components first need to be understood. So foundational LLM, you can say that, and it can give you a beautiful prose, and it says, how wonderful it's going to be, and Paris is romantic, and it'll give you all those things. But the useful things like, well, do I need to kind of wear warm clothes right now, like tomorrow? And how do I order a cab? It won't be able to do. I'm not saying it can't do forever. It's just right now, it needs those components to be brought in somehow. So you still need to, although you don't need a foundational LLM, you still need LLMs which are specialist. You know, the specialist LLM could be specialist knowledge based, action based, context based. You still need to train quite a lot of these specialist LLMs. And I think that's where the world is going to go next, because you have the data, you're going to train them. So you need compute. So that's one, the first layer. You need data. How are you going to bring data to train these models? Who is going to provide you that? Why are they going to provide you that? How do you make sure it's not getting stolen? How do you make sure it's safe and secure to kind of train these models with that data? So that's the second component layer, which is the data component layer. Then you need to build new types of models. So, it's not like just because we now have foundational LLMs, let's just pack up and just leave it to them. No, because you're going to have new, let's say, neurosymbolic LLMs, which are giving you more deterministic, less hallucination, more actionable kind of information. So you need new models, you need new technologies which uses less data, more efficient. How do you get to that? So you have this AI layer, or as if you want to extend that further, it's the artificial general intelligence, because how do you make these models understand properly? And then from there on, you want to go to the artificial superintelligence layer, which is, way better than humans. It's not just humans, it's way better than humans, more specialist, more faster, better in kind of making assumptions, predictions, objectives, all of that. So that's that layer in the middle. So now if I translate all of that, and then the last layer is, okay, now I've got these beautiful models and I've got data which I've trained it on, but what? How do you get to the consumer? So the consumer, you have personal assistants like Siri, like Alexa. I mean, you can talk to them, but for them to do something and have your agency and do something is very difficult. They still can't connect unless you connect them one to one. So that's where our agent-based technology comes in, which is the fetches technology, which enables you to granularize actions. It kind of takes all the legacy systems and you can connect an agent to the legacy systems and they can execute tasks. So now if I rewind back, so we have a layer, which is the network, which Fetch has, where you can think about logging transactions, interactions, orchestration, based on what your commercialization model looks like, based on which AI model you use looks like, what data you use look like. So you need a recording system. So that's the Fetch network layer. Then on top of that is, as I said, data. Ocean brings that data technology, which is how do you secure it? How do you make it safe? How do you monetize it? How do you use the data? How do you bring compute to data or data to compute? How can you do multi-party computation? All of those things Ocean is very good at. So we felt, that's the second layer which you need. And then the third layer, which is Singularity, is really good with research. I mean, Ben has been working in this space for 20. I mean, he kind of coined with Shane Legg, who was a colleague in DeepMind, and Ben, they coined the term AGI together. So now he knows what he's kind of wanting the AGI to look like, and he's been researching, and his team has been researching. So we need that research to improve the models. And then finally, the fetch agent framework or the agent platform, which you can connect multiple LLMs, machine learning models, legacy systems, APIs, and it automatically finds a way to connect with them, execute the task. That's what the fetch layer brings. So now if you think it makes logical sense that if a builder, a developer is going to come and build a solution, he or she needs all of them,
Yeah.
all of those components. And if you can save them time in the sense that they don't have to worry about, oh, which token do I need for this service? Which token do I need for this service? And you can just do full integration, a fully vertically integrated system, which makes their life very easy, then it absolutely makes sense. Why wouldn't you do it is the question. So that's how I kind of came about with it. And then obviously, I've known both projects, and we worked with Ocean a lot in terms of the German space, where we worked with automotive sector. We're
Mm.
part of several initiatives in Europe. So we knew them. We knew Singularity quite a while back. So we've been in the space. We've been speaking to each other. So it kind of made perfect sense to think, okay, we need to build a general intelligence, which then moves on to super intelligence. How are we going to actually get to that point? That's that's what triggered it. And then from there on, we put everything together to make sure that, we can actually get to a point where, it's not, we didn't want to change anything in terms of how people manage their um, foundations, but we just felt that technologically we needed something to change, and putting them all together makes sense.
You gave a great rundown of the why of how these projects are merging together, and the reasons, right? And the benefits and so forth. Tell us about the logistics though. What happens to the three blockchains? Are they merge into one, or they will coexist in the ecosystem? And then also, how do the tokens come into play? And let's say, as a FET token holder, what happens to my tokens under the new ASI system?
Yeah, so it's a merge of tokens, and Fetch chain, which is a Cosmos-based chain at the moment, but we have different consensus mechanism we're trialing out. There's different features we're trialing out for AI kind of application build and development. So all the tokens will go onto Fetch chain. So they will become the Fetch token. But Fetch token will be renamed as ASI token.
Mm.
So for Fetch holders, it's a name change and network upgrade. For Ocean and Singularity tokens, it's a conversion whereby their tokens will be converted into ASI token based on the conversion rate that we announced. So I think it's 0.433. So for every Ocean token or Singularity token, you roughly get 0.433 ASI token. But that means that the number of tokens FET holders have remains the same, but to accommodate and merge those other tokens, we have to issue new tokens, and the ratio, as I said, is 0.433. So I think I do get this question a lot: is it going to be dilution? Well, it's not, because you're actually adding more water, you're actually adding more value into the pot. So there's no dilution as such, but you do have those communities joining and merging their token into this. So at the moment, let's say the market cap is let's, I don't know what the detail is, but let's say the market cap is 3 billion, and once those two projects join us, it'll become, 6 or 7 billion. So I think that's how it would be. So the pot becomes bigger, the cake becomes bigger, the piece stays the same. So ultimately, in a absolute way, the value is the same, but as a percentage, you become percentage of the value.
Mm. What's your timeline for this? And also, what's on your 2024 roadmap once the merge is completed?
Yeah, so we are carrying out the vote right now. I mean, Fetch, we kind of, the first vote is in, and then the second vote is going to go in, which will be, kind of acceptance of the mergers. So we expect by um, in roughly around 30 days that the merger will be approved, and we're already working quite hard on getting the network upgrades ready. We're speaking to the exchanges already so that the transition is as smooth as possible. So over the next 30 to 40 days, we expect to move across FET to ASI, upgrade the network, plus bring in all the other two communities and their token onto ASI, issue the token, or there will be a token exchange for them, and then so that kind of takes care of the token. We then move on to, and we're already working together to build the tech kind of vertical integration. So all the services will just use ASI tokens. So you can imagine all the staking rewards, all the features and functions that the other projects have, apart from what Fetch already has. All of that will become part of the fetch slash ASI chain. And then suddenly you'll see a lot more volume going through the ASI chain, and ultimately it will benefit us as a whole ASI community. It'll benefit us because the transactions will go up, the TVLs will go up, and I can't commit that this will stay as a Cosmos chain
Mm.
or it will have other features in the Cosmos chain, but the ASI chain will be the coordination chain for AI, and that's our objective. So over the next, um, 12 months, we want a very reasonably tight integration with all the tech stack. There are other technologies which we still need. Which we'll probably will find and integrate more. There is a lot more coherent integration integrated stack, which will be available. So you can use data service, you can use different machine learning models, you can actually commercialize using agents, you can actually record all of that for audit purpose, and it will all be done via one token, which is the ASI token. So that's the vision, that's the objective, and we're already working on it. We're already starting to make huge progress, um, because it's just such complementary technologies that it makes sense and it automatically kind of fits in. They're not like competing. We're not competing technologies. We're complementary technologies. So that's the great news, and we hope over the next 12 months to be the chain for AI. And that's really the objective. And the technology for AI, the platform for deploying AI applications. So those are the key components that we're looking to do. In terms of token, we expect with the mergers and hopefully as we see more adoption on our system, we expect to be, hopefully among the top, 2025 tokens. Price goes up, price comes down. I can't really comment on that, but I think at least as a project, value as a project should, multiply rather than it's rather than just additive. So it's it's an alternative to the centralized um, kind of solutions that are available. So we wanted to provide a decentralized alternative to the AI deployment technology, not just deployment, building, delivering, deploying, testing. So the whole tech stack takes care of that.
So, question on that. Obviously, the way you guys are doing things is decentralized, and there's transparency and much more. And in the tech world, we have two things running in parallel because of crypto and blockchain. You have this decentralized movement, but you also have centralized movements with companies like Google and OpenAI and so forth. So, I guess my question for you, and this might be a hard question to answer, do you see the future ultimately leading the path that you guys are going with, where things are more decentralized? Once again, given that there's the macro of blockchain and crypto taking us to that in that direction, but you still have your incumbent centralized companies like your Googles and so forth. How do you see that dynamic playing out?
I don't think we have to take that bet. Is it going to be one or the other? It could be a combination of both. It could be some people just prefer using one than as compared to the others. Now, what we're trying to do here is, yeah, there is an inherent problem in decentralization. The inherent problem is it's a lot tougher to do. It's not easy to deliver. Decision making, putting things together. You have multiple different decentralized systems running around, which you have to bring together. What about the governance, So we're trying to make that much better by putting all these projects together, because then one governance, four, five technologies within that stack, much easier, right? You don't have to go to 10 different projects, use 10 different tokens. I mean, you don't do that in centralized entities, right? You just use your fiat currency. So we kind of are removing that friction, trying to be in a much more competitive way available as a secondary solution, not just a secondary solution, but an alternative solution. So that in itself has huge value for not just for AI space, but also for the crypto space. Because one of the biggest problems in crypto space is we're finding difficult to get applications onboarded. So it's very much like, well, we have this wonderful solution, but we don't have a problem. So, so there is that element which happens. So DeFi, financial, that's all there, but that's it. We haven't moved past that gaming or DeFi, right?
Mm.
So we're struggling to add new use cases to this. Now, AI is very different. It opens up that space to application building. It opens up the space to bring users in a different way onto crypto. Now, we don't have to keep telling everybody that we use crypto, because crypto, the whole point is, yes, it's decentralized, but it exists in the background and it does what you need to do. And till we get to that point when you actually see a real application running on crypto, then you will start seeing a huge amount of traction. And I'm hoping AI is going to be that catalyst to bring that traction, which,
Mm.
initially we had a lot of traction because of DeFi, but then kind of slowed down. DeFi has other problems, the regulation. Now, that's another issue. But let's now compare that to AI. AI will also have regulation, but what's the great bit is being decentralized, being everything auditable on chain, being being a solution which the regulator can come and monitor all the time. It gives us an edge. It doesn't give us a disadvantage. And I think that we want to make sure all the tools exist that the regulator can actually see there is inclusion, there is safety, there's security, and we're not building this artificial superintelligence in isolation. It's not in a black box. You can see what's happening, who's training you, whose data is coming in. When the action is taken on agent-based system, which agent took what action? It's recorded on the chain. What financial implication? The biggest danger in AI at the moment is if you put it in, big corporations' control and they get it wrong. They might not want to get it wrong, but they can get it wrong. I mean,
Right.
look what happened with Google's,
Yeah.
video and picture software, right?
Mhm.
They didn't intend to do it. It just can happen. And if a big corporation like Google can have that problem, then why would others not have that problem? They would certainly have that problem. And once it's out of the bag, once I mean, now imagine making such a mistake with a AGI, which is self-controlling, self-learning, self-assessing, and it kind of builds the wrong model in itself. Then how do we deal with it? Because it's in a centralized control, nobody can see it. So I think regulation and AI kind of are going to be together, but I think it puts us in a very good place to actually showcase how there is an alternative.
Mm. Question for you on the relationship between AI and blockchain. Do you see it being like symbiotic where they help each other? I think you touched a bit on it, but one item I've been paying attention to is the rise of AI deepfake content. And certain platforms have been looking to put content on the blockchain so you can verify where did this content come from, when was it published, and so on and so forth. And it could be many other use cases where blockchain maybe is helping to police AI, and AI, like you said, helping to open doors for adoption and use cases. How do you see that relationship, continuing growing in the future?
I think there's definitely a use case here for blockchain to manage that visibility, that auditability. And as you said, you could put that on chain, you can do many things. But here's the problem. The problem is it's too cumbersome. It's
Mm,
not efficient. Unless we make it efficient, unless we make it less cumbersome, unless it's easy for people to use it, the adoption will not come. So really one of the key objectives that we have here is, yes, we want to build artificial superintelligence, but that's down the line. And in building in building that, in training that, we need visibility, we need auditability, we need ease of use. And we're putting all those components together. So while we are trying to go from here to there, we're also looking at commercialization, which is open, decentralized, which can actually provide visibility. And all the things that you just mentioned, you could easily take care of that using the blockchain. But that's not to say you can't do it in a centralized way. But then who controls it
yeah.
is the question. And I think that's where we start to feel. But one of my biggest objective is, unless we are at least as efficient as a centralized entity's technology stack, we're not going to get the adoption because it makes it more expensive, it makes it more cumbersome, and it's difficult. But one thing which is really exciting is that if you have seen the developer community in crypto, you would know they are very passionate about it, right? And they would they will spend nights and days to build something. And I think that's where we're going to have an edge over the centralized communities, because now we're bringing these developers who are so engaged and who are so passionate about building this new thing, that we just on that basis, if we can get it right and we can excite our communities in the right way, we will we will have a very big advantage.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. I do want to ask you about AI impact on the macro, and this is going to deviate a bit off of the blockchain crypto conversation, but because of your experience, I absolutely have to ask you. Um, there's a ton of benefits to AI, right? And I'm excited to see all these things. But are there any items that keep you up at night where there may be downsides that it impacts our society or culture or civilization? Is there anything that you think might be a threat?
With every new technology, you have a threat to the old one,
Mm,
right? So, when we had telephones, we had a threat to Telegram. We had, and then we had the threat to mail system a little bit. And then when we became, mobile. and 5G, then there was a threat to fiber optic network, and there was a threat to all the other network and the telephone landline network. So, so you're always going to have that problem, right? So, um, Google came to disrupt Yahoo, Yahoo came to disrupt Yellow Pages, and it's going to happen. But that doesn't mean it's a negative impact always. You could look at it in two different ways, whereby you can think that we're going to improve in certain things and we can, like actually, I think this whole new wave of AI and the ability to code will kind of reduce the use cases for developers, right? It's
Yeah.
coming, right? Like it or not, it's going to happen. Accept it. I'm not saying it's happening right now because it can't write the code, it can't test the code. You still need the logics in the right way. But but the actual developers, their efficiency is going to multiply crazy, right? So you can actually, a same one person can probably develop 10 people's work, right? Using these tools. So that's the step one. The second step is you probably don't need to write that much code anyway, because the LLMs will take care of. And that's what I was kind of alluding to. If you think about you rather than writing code to understand your objective, you can just give your objective, and the objective goes onto our agent-based framework and actually assembles all the agents that you need. So you don't really need to write code, right? And now you have the user interface, which understands you completely, which is natural language user interface. So you can speak to your washing machine and tell it, "Oi, turn yourself on at this time, save me $10 worth of energy." It will just do what you want it to do. That's your user interface. You don't have to have another app for it, right? So that model is going to, for sure, is going to change, and that will disrupt quite a few industries, and that will disrupt, and that will have a negative impact on some of the people who work in those industries. But that will then open up some new areas of interest. And, for example, in my mind, biotech is a really great example. We're not going to solve that problem just with what we have right now. There's a lot more development, there's a lot more understanding needs to happen. So, if anything, what would happen is that our focus will go back to more science research,
Mm.
which then is going to also be accelerated with this AI. But then comes this, how can you bring multiple things together to develop a solution? How can you tell the AI to develop that solution? So I think, well, which in these days is prompt engineering, but it'll be much more than prompt engineering. It will be probably objective engineering. So how do you create the right objectives for this AI to kind of deliver the solution? I think we still will need quite a bit of manual kind of work will need to be done still in the foreseeable future, because robots are great, but still, I think we have some time to get to a perfection level. So there will be still that. But I think some areas for sure will have a negative impact, like entertainment, for example. You could just write drama series and you can play them out and you don't need all the actors. I mean, but that's coming very soon, and we saw that in Hollywood. And I think a lot of investment has been delayed or stopped because of those reasons. So you are going to see some negative impact. But ultimately, we as humans will adapt and will come back to, different and better ways of doing things.
For sure. As you were saying that with biotech, I was just thinking like we as humans right now with the technology we have, we're not able to cure cancer, but AI could possibly help us cure that and other diseases
I mean,
because
you saw what AlphaFold is doing. You saw how accelerated development there will be. So yes, of course, that will come.
Mm. All right, let's jump back to crypto. Now you're based in the UK, and I want to get your thoughts on, the UK working on crypto regulations, EU passed crypto regulations. Here in the United States, we're still waiting. But I would love to get your perspective on those regulations that were passed and how they impact the work you're doing as an innovator.
I still feel we don't have huge amounts of clarity here still.
Mm.
And we have a double whammy effect because we are in AI as well, which is now getting to be regulated, and there is crypto which needs to be regulated. So I think there is. there's a lot of misconception still. And I don't find UK as a very conducive place for crypto at this point in time, and haven't done for quite a while. But I think there is improvement which is coming. There's a lot more understanding that is coming. But I feel some parts of like for example, we moved our crypto operations to Dubai, which was probably the right thing to do because Dubai is much more welcoming to the crypto industry and has, you know, the regulation. We set up in Singapore, which foundation was in Singapore initially because there was some clarity around how the token issuance should work. Although UK is making very good progress, the problem comes with banking effectively because crypto's got such a bad kind of stigma attached to it. The banks, still don't feel that they can comfortably allow crypto companies to operate with a bank account. So most of the uh, high street banks, the mainstream banks, they don't want to touch crypto. It's a bad thing. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You might be running, a company all legitimate with all the approvals. They just still feel very uncomfortable with it. So unless I think the regulators start kind of easing off their fears, I think we'll still won't feel the true value that could come here anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, to your point though, they're making some progress, right? So at least they're moving in the right
In the right
direction.
one.
Yeah, but it's still got ways to go, and I envy a bit of the UK, even the EU, because you guys are at least a bit further ahead than we are here in the United States.
Yeah.
Because here we're dealing with the SEC and all the litigation and so forth. But we'll eventually get there. Um, I want to get your thoughts on the market as a whole and how it's grown. Obviously, you got Bitcoin ETFs out in the market. There's talks of tokenization. Some of the biggest institutions in the world, from Wall Street and so forth, are getting involved. What are your thoughts on how the industry has grown?
I think the industry is maturing, of course, and that's very clear because, initially it was not going to last for a year, then it was not going to last for, 2 years or 5 years, or this down cycle is the end of it. But, it's survived and it's thrived. So every time it comes back stronger. So I think the way I look at it is Bitcoin is now, in a way, it kind of is now a commodity. I don't know if it's a store value or not, but I believe it is, but some people don't. But I don't want to argue that case. But it's definitely something which is becoming part of financial instruments. It's becoming part of financial portfolios. So it has kind of grown to a point where you can't ignore it, and that's probably my kind of only the limit which I can say because anything else would be just an opinion. So it's grown to become part of a financial kind of market and a value. We have usefulness in terms of Ethereum, as we have seen, and several other chains we have seen. So the usefulness is also coming, and I think people are starting to build solutions. But I did raise that point that unless we start to see some real traction in real use cases, we are going to struggle. And having another layer one where you do exactly the same as you did last year on another layer one, but slightly better, and then you can have meme coins. I've got nothing against dogs, right? So please I mean, I love dogs. I love cats. Meme coins, great. But they're not for me. Because I feel that's what is kind of partly giving it a bad kind of image because there's this up and there's this down and people talk about it and then everybody feels that every project in this space is just going to do the same and it doesn't. And then you have this negativity amongst community, which then gets picked up by the outsiders. and then they write about it because they think, well, it's a bunch of people who are just going out and buying dog tokens and waiting for it to pump and then to dump. So I think that's something which I don't appreciate in our industry, which I think, but what that still does, it brings attention. It's negative or positive, I don't care. But I mean, it's an opinion, and a lot of people would probably disagree with my opinion. But I feel if we start delivering some serious use cases,
Mhm.
we have we have a lot to gain in the next few years. And I feel that AI might be a really, really good target technology which could open up that door because you will see automation coming, which brings ease of use of crypto. Um, we have real use case of building AI applications on decentralized ledger technology, which is going to bring attention, but also real solution. I mean, what I was explaining was agent-based solution. We have two sites of agent-based solution. One runs decentralized, one is centralized. And we're feeling a lot more traction in the decentralized space
Mhm.
because people don't want to share a lot of their data. They want to maintain their own control on the data. They don't want some other company to run parts of the machine learning. Students want to build machine learning models and they want to monetize them, which they can't do on a centralized system. Although centralized system like Hugging Face is also a very good example. But that's where we're going to start seeing traction. So, of course, I'm biased to my own space, which is AI, and I feel it can actually do quite a lot of good. And I think this whole alliance is just part of bringing that motion onto this space and saying you can build real world use cases. The developers who are building solutions in centralized space can build it here, and crypto has a real use case.
Hmm. Well put. I got some wrap-up questions here for you. First, if you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be? And I'm assuming it might be AI.
Well, I think you say that, but what I want to kind of point out towards is our alliance partner, Singularity, has a Sophia verse, which is around AI. And I don't know if you've seen this, but it's pretty good. And I think you're going to have agents running in the Sophia verse. So it'll be agent would be my theme, AI agents.
Got some rapid fire questions for you. First is favorite food,
Korean,
favorite musician or band,
Metallica, hands down.
favorite, yeah, I love Metallica. A favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
It's a good one. Favorite book?
Um, Superintelligence, Nick Bostrom.
Hmm. And what do you do for fun as a hobby or a pastime?
Well, I like watching cars race. So Formula One is one of my favorites. Yeah, Formula One or any car sports.
Awesome. Humayun, pleasure chatting with you. I got to have you back on because I'm super fascinated with AI and the convergence with blockchain and so forth. So we'll have to set up another interview and go deeper in some of these AI topics. But thank you so much for joining me.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Tony. It was a pleasure.